You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com with Peter H. and Stevie J. Find them on Twitter at HardcoreCDN and at AngryMarks. And now, for all the news, reviews, and interviews in mixed martial arts, it's time for Glove Up or Shut Up from AngryMarks.com.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here at AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Not from Lincoln, Nebraska.
No, it's about a 45-minute drive?
Yeah, give or take as the crow flies.
Welcome to NPR, folks. Oh boy. Okay, well, we had a big UFC fight night in Lincoln, Nebraska, UFC Fight Night 135, and we have a little bit of news to discuss as well. Next week's show, we're going to preview the next UFC big card there with Darren Till, and that will be an interesting card. We'll talk about that one next week. But Stevie, let's talk about this show in Lincoln. Do you want to start with the main, or do you want to start with the prelims?
I think we should start with the main event because it is, after all, what people came to see. And as Justin Gaethje said in his post-fight interview, tonight I was a man of my word.
Well, he fought James Vick. Vick was a replacement fight. It wasn't like a last-minute replacement, but
no, Ali Kinta had been knocked out of this fight for many weeks.
Yeah, this wasn't a short term, but Vick stepped up. You got to give him props for that. And he lasted a minute 27.
Yeah. It turned into a firefight, and Vic did clip him pretty good a couple times, but he didn't win the war.
It was a good back and forth for about the first minute, and then Gaethje caught him with this hammer, and it was one of the scariest lights-out knockouts because Vic's eyes were still open when he hit the mat, and it was reminiscent of knockouts from the past where they showed the winner. They didn't show the guy laying on the mat for quite a while because he was thinking it was Tuesday.
I don't think that was the scariest thing. I think the scariest thing was that when he came to and didn't know that he'd been knocked out, he tried to get through the doctors and referees and shoot for a single leg.
Yeah, to say his brains were scrambled is an understatement.
Ooh, yeah. So he better get a 90-day medical suspension. I don't know if he did or not, but he needs to sit out for a while.
Yeah, it's not a quick turnaround for Vic, but Gaethje, boy, you could definitely make the case to have him fight again this year.
Absolutely. Took no, lasting damage, I would say. Obviously, like I said, he got in a firefight and got clipped a few times, but when you walk away from it with the other guy laying down on the canvas and you standing victorious, you can probably take a fight again in a relatively soon amount of time. Not maybe as soon as Donald Cerrone likes to do, but not too long.
No, and Gaethje takes the main event win here. I would see him either in a main or co-main or even on a very stacked card. With the right opponent, you could put him third from the top.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of things he takes, a $50,000 performance of the night bonus is something he takes as well.
I'll take that to the bank, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Andre Fili and Michael Johnson, this fight, entertaining.
Super close.
29-28, 29-28, and 27-30. What fight was this judge watching?
Well, you should say it was 30-27 for Fili and 29-28 times 2 for Johnson.
Yes, that's what I meant to say. Fili was upset by the win, or by the loss.
He wouldn't have been upset by the win.
Because he thought he was winning, and when he didn't get his hand raised, it was like a look of shock. And I always say never leave it to the judges, but you have to win more than one round if you want to win this fight. He didn't win 2, and you sure as hell didn't win 3.
No, the problem was, like I said, it was a very close fight, and for him to get 2 out of 3 rounds, he would have needed to win 2 decisively, and there was only 1 round that he even won close, let alone decisively.
when the judges go 29-28 Johnson, 30-27 for Feely, I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. And 29-28, I'm like, okay, this better be Johnson. Okay, it was good, thank God, because I'm not sure which judge did the 30-27 for Feely, but maybe check his credentials next time.
Well, wait a minute. When you said, oh God, this isn't good, how can you have even been shocked by that? Because the fight you just watched before that was also a split decision.
It was, I had Casey win 2 out of 3 rounds. So when they do 29-28 and 28-29, it's like, okay, I could see Casey winning 2 of the 3. When they announced the third score was 30-27, I knew Casey had it. Cause Hill and Feely did not win Hill and Feely did not win all 3 rounds in their fight. There's no way.
Mm-hmm. In each fight, I can see one round going the way of the person who did not get the scorecards.
Yeah.
But not 2, and definitely not 3.
No. Brian Barberena beat Jake Ellenberger into retirement in the first round at 226.
Yep. And he took his gloves off and said, thank you, Nebraska. You were here with me at the start, and you're here with me at the end.
He apparently made that decision to retire the day of the fight.
I kind of feel like based on that fight, if he hadn't, he should have anyway, because just a few years ago, this is a guy that Ellenberger would have defeated handily, if not just outright knocked out. And to be on the losing end of this fight at this point in his career suggests to me that his heart is not in it, and or that he's been knocked out a few too many times. So I believe this would have been inevitable whether he had made up his mind to do it that day or not.
I forgot that he beat his brother, too.
Brian Barberena, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I when they showed the highlight, like the promo pack before the fight, I was like, oh yeah, he got the other Ellenberger too.
Uh-huh.
It's something it's when you watch so many fights that kind of blur together. I've said that on this show before, but I'm kind of sad Ellenberger's retired, but I mean, you're right. This performance, it showed that I think he'd be a good coach.
Right, but unfortunately to be like a coach on The Ultimate Fighter, like get a star role like that, you would actually need to be in a much higher profile position. Now, if you mean like a coach on somebody's team, he's already that.
Yeah, or he could open his own gym.
That's more or less a fact of life if you live here. The Ellenbergers are well established in this community.
Well, let's move on to John Marega and Devison Figueiredo.
Close enough.
Marega got beat here in the second round. I've been struggling with this fight, to be honest, all week since the show. I'm not sure if Marega got exposed or if he just got caught. I'm
gonna lean towards getting.
Hard to say.
I mean, look at his 3 previous fights with Ashkan Mokhtarian, Magomed Bibulatov, and Wilson Hayes. That's 3 badass dudes. So you can't tell me that he's not a top-level fighter. It's just, like you said, he got caught.
Yeah, even the best fighters get caught from time to time, but I wouldn't sleep on the guy who won. Like, he's impressive. Now, there's another guy in the prelims. We were chatting during the fights. Another guy impressed me as well. We'll get there, and I know, you know what I'm talking about.
I do, but we have to talk about the 5th latest knockout in middleweight division history, which I find to be both an interesting and a completely useless statistic.
Well, Anders with a head kick at 4:42 of the third round was... I'm impressed he was able to pull that out, like in the bag of tricks he has. To pull that out with less than 20 seconds after having 2 tough rounds.
Oh, yeah,
good
in one
on
of
you.
those rounds, he was very close to being knocked out himself. Tim Williams caught him good.
No, he caught Tim Williams good.
Well, he caught Tim Williams good in the end.
Yeah.
But I'm saying earlier on in the fight, Williams had significantly busted him up.
Oh yeah, it was a good back and forth. This is a fight. If you have Fight Pass, when this fight is there, check it out.
Yeah, in fact, this got a Performance of the Night bonus for Eric Anders, if that tells you something. So he definitely impressed the brass with that late. I don't want to call it a come from behind finish because it's not like he was down in all rounds leading up to that point. It was competitive. It was back and forth. It was probably a round apiece, but it was more like the home run in the bottom of the ninth, where it's like the walk-off home run that wins the game. That's what that head kick was.
Well, I was gonna say, are you going with the don't call it a comeback?
No, I'm not calling it a comeback. Definitely not. He could have won on the scorecards anyway, and I think he would have. He just put the icing on the cake.
Yeah. James Krause and Warley Alves, second round 228. Krause knee and punches, finished him off. Krause, I think he deserves better than the prelims in his next fight.
In fact, if you're asking me, I looked at the guy that I had previously ranked number 15 in the division, and his record wasn't as good as Krause because this is Krause's 5th straight win. So I swapped them. On my own personal UFC rankings that I submitted, I put James Krause as number 15.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, I can see that.
5 straight wins says to me that's a top 15 guy, especially with a finish like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think of a case or a situation where you don't make him top 15. If you don't, he is literally on the bubble, like number 16.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that's a tough, I've said it before, there's some tough divisions in UFC right now just to crack the top 15.
Right, and I know people are probably going to chastise me for this because I'm saying I knocked out Dong Yoon Kim when I say that, but again, look at their record over the last 5 fights, and who has the better record? James Krause.
Yeah.
And look who's been more active over their last 5 fights, because there was a period there where Dong Yoon Kim had like 1 fight a year for 3 years, and he hasn't even had a fight yet in 2018, so I'm looking at both activity of the fighter and performance of the fighter, and in both categories, I'm sorry to say this, but James Krause is the better man of the two right now. Now, would he win a fight between the two of them one-on-one? I don't know about that, but he's the more active fighter. He's currently the better fighter.
Well, let's move on to the next fight here. It's Yuri Alcantara against Corey Sandhagen.
That was a surprise. I did not see Corey Sandhagen going TKO on Yuri Alcantara. I did not call that. I did not see that.
This is we go back to the other fight I mentioned earlier. It's a case where I think Alcantara just got caught.
Well, you could
I don't think he got exposed on this one.
You could say that, and I would agree with you, but I'm also starting to question my own personal ranking of Alcantara, because that's now 3 losses in his last 4 fights, and yes, he got caught in this one, but his record is starting to slip a little. I also think it's possible.
You think his next fight would be very telling?
I think so, because at this point he's had 47 professional fights, at least those that are known and recorded. As always, there may be more that we don't know about. Yeah. So when you've had over 40 fights, it's always possible that Father Time is going to catch up to you.
Well, yeah, the tread on the tire argument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Sandhagen, I think another fight in the prelims against a decent opponent. See what he's made of.
Or
test him. Keep testing him.
I would be willing to consider putting him like the opening fight on an FS1 prelim before a pay-per-view.
You'd have to have a good opponent for that.
Right, but I'm saying with a performance like that against a very known quality opponent, or at least what I previously considered to be quality, I think you can give him a shot. I'm not saying he's the main event of the prelims, but the opening fight.
All right. Andrew Sanchez and Marcus Perez went to a decision. This round was pretty close. 2-1 on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards.
But all 3 judges agree, so I got no complaint.
Yeah. Mickey Gall beat George Sullivan in 1 minute and 9 seconds. That shocked me.
Yeah, that was the one where you texted me and you were like, whoa, I did not see that coming. And I said to you, hey, guess what? Mickey Gall isn't a one-trick pony who beat CM Punk. He's actually a good fighter.
Sullivan's a good notch on your belt if you're looking to make an impression. And Gall had time to make a call out. And a lot of fighters said, I don't care. Give me someone in the top 15. I'll fight whoever they put in front of me. Gall had a plan. He wants to fight against Sage, have a rematch against him, or have a fight against the legend Diego Sanchez. And I'm like, fight Sanchez. I don't want you fighting Sage. Fight someone like Sanchez on a big stage like New York City. Mm-hmm. That if you win that fight on that big of a platform, done.
But let's consider that's a smart call out by him because this is not the Diego Sanchez of 2, 5, or even 10 years ago. This is Diego Sanchez with, as you just put it, tread off the tires.
But Diego is someone who, yes, he definitely lost some of that tread. But, I mean, if you can beat someone like Diego, because you know Diego's going to bring that fight.
Oh, well, that's no question. But this is the kind of fight that people who are in a position to make a call out love to do because it's a safe call out. I mean, if you lose, you lost to a legend, and there's no shame in that. But if you win, which you very well could do with somebody who's maybe just a tiny bit past their prime, I'm trying to be nice, but if you do beat them and they've got a big name like Diego Sanchez, that makes you a more well-known fighter for beating a legend. So it's almost a no-lose scenario. It's, as you like to say, Peter, he's playing with house money.
If you beat Diego in New York and Diego raises your hand and basically puts you over, now, using a wrestling term, but you know what I mean.
Right. I'm saying he becomes a much bigger star. No longer is he just the guy who beat CM Punk. Now he's the guy who beat Diego the Nightmare Sanchez.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's a very intriguing fight, but then again, on the flip side of the coin, a rematch against someone like Sage is still a money fight. There's still interest in that rematch.
Mm-hmm.
So if Diego can't make it, that's a hell of a plan B, in my opinion.
Or, you know what? Even if they don't give him either of those fighters because they can't come to terms with both parties, there's still a good plan C out there somewhere because Mickey Gall's stock is rising.
Yeah, a very impressive one. Sullivan got caught, and he got caught badly in 1 minute and 7 seconds. You mentioned it. We keep saying this. The earlier the submission, the less slippy and sweaty you are.
Yeah, you can't slip out of things as easily as you can in the second or third round when you're all lacquered up with sweat and possibly blood.
Exactly. As far as the prelims on Fight Pass, I actually went out on my way to make sure I was watching these because, like, Joanne Calderwood beat
Kalindra Faria.
Kalindra in 4:57 of the first round with an armbar. I thought this was going to a second round. 10 seconds, locks on the armbar. I'm like, she's got 5, 4. That's a tap out. Never mind. I forgot Calderwood's submission game is pretty good.
Yeah, let me just put it this way. If you got put in a submission armbar by Ronda Rousey and there were 10 seconds left in the round, are you going to try to fight it or are you going to tap? I'm going to tap.
You're comparing Calderwood's submission skills to Rousey's?
Well, I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm saying it's the same level of danger. Like, you don't want to risk getting a permanent injury that derails your MMA career. 10 seconds to survive to a second round isn't worth that.
3 seconds, though. That's cutting it pretty close.
Yeah, but I still would have tapped. That was That was tight. That was deep. She was not escaping that, and she was going to risk doing permanent injury if she didn't tap.
Drew Dober beat John Tuck via unanimous decision.
A little lopsided. 10-8 round in there. Drew Dober put a beating on him.
Yeah, Drew Dober, he's tough. Tough as nails. Randy Yaha. Yeah, how did we screw that one up? Yeah, against Luke Sanders.
I really should put an armbar on you for that, because Ronnie Yaya is a legend. Well,
the heel hook was legendary because he kept going for it, and I think it was the second or third attempt, and he just locked it on, and I looked at the pain on Sanders' face, and I looked at the clock, and I'm like, no. No.
Yeah, you're in a heel hook from an Abu Dhabi Combat Club world champion, Sun Tap.
You could roll for, okay, you got out of the first one, you got this, okay, you can, oh no, you're not, because a heel hook, if it's locked on the way that was locked on, it's like a boa constrictor. You can try to escape, and you're just making it worse.
Right. It's like Husmar Palhari is putting you in a knee bar. Pain, it's you don't want to try to get out of that because you're just going to break or tear something.
Just no. Yeah.
Honestly, Ronnie Yaya puts anything on you, start thinking about tapping. It's a rear naked choke, it's a heel hook, it's an arm bar, it's a neck crank, it's a triangle choke. It doesn't matter. Whatever he catches you in, you better start thinking about tapping. Tap or go to sleep or lose a limb. Those are your choices when you're fighting Ronnie Yaya and he gets you in a vulnerable position.
Yeah, there's no escape. There is an escape.
That should be his official nickname. It should be Ronnie No Escape Yaya.
All right, so we have a little bit of news here. Not much. Quiet week, obviously. I wanted to mention this because I know we can talk about this for a little bit, and it's a big story down in the States and in the MMA world as well. The passing of John McCain. Huge story this past week. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention his name. He does have a very strong tie in the world of mixed martial arts as well.
Absolutely. And Dana White and many others have gone on the record noting that John McCain was a vocal opponent of combat fighting when it wasn't regulated. But once fighter safety was put in place and commissions were there put in place to oversee it, he was totally fine with it from that point on. All he was concerned about was that these fighters were going in there like an unsanctioned bare-knuckle street fight, and he didn't want that kind of combat where fighters could get hurt, maimed, or seriously injured. He wanted it to be safe.
Do you remember the Dan Severn, Ken Shamrock fight that was so... What was it? If they threw a punch, they would be arrested? The whole show, it was they were afraid to do anything, so Severn and Shamrock just circled each other for like 30 minutes. It's one of the early UFC fights, and it's one of the most boring fights you'll ever watch.
It's a very infamous fight. I believe it went to a draw.
Yeah, that was because McCain, with the pressure he put on, and it was, without him, I don't know if we would have the sport we have today.
Yeah, he is directly or indirectly responsible for getting states to adopt safety and oversight and athletic commissions and regulation that have turned what originally was just a crazy idea by Art Davie that led to a few events on pay-per-view into a fully sanctioned sport. And I shouldn't say Art Davie alone. I mean, the Gracies were doing this even before Art Davie, but Art Davie was the guy who thought, let's make a show out of this and let's put it on pay-per-view. So John McCain definitely took it from those roots and helped to shape it into becoming a more professional mixed martial arts sport. But I don't even think that should really be the beginning and the end of our statement on him, because we're obviously talking about his influence on mixed martial arts because this is Glove Up or Shut Up. But my personal opinion of him extends far beyond his role in MMA. I consider him an American hero, a war veteran, a decorated serviceman, an honorably serving member of the United States Senate, and the owner of the nickname the Maverick, because he would do what he believed and not what the party wanted him to do. Even famously giving a thumbs down on the Senate floor when they tried to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act.
That was an epic moment, and that's a great nickname. And we've spoken. I mean, I can speak for my family. I do have military ties in my family. Find a lot of friends I have some way, shape, or form, have some type of military ties. There's a lot of words that have described him over the past few days since his passing, and hero is one of them. It's the one that I think is the best reflecting one, and
I want to add one more thing to my
Joe.
already
who
long
you are,
list.
Joe.
Yeah, but before you talk about Joe, I just want to add one more thing. I also want to talk about his class and his decorum, because during a political debate when he was running for president, a woman came up to him and started complaining that Barack Obama was not a naturalized citizen and that Barack was actually a Muslim and that he was a terrorist. And McCain cut her off in her tracks and said, "No, ma'am, no, he's not. He's an American the same as I am. We differ in ideology, but we are both patriots and we are both people who love this country. I respect him." And
I think it's when the woman said Arab is when he took the microphone away from her hands. Like, yoink! That's enough out of that.
And that, to me, is the measure of the man, that in the day and age that we live in, where we have a feckless, reckless, disgusting president who says horrible, deplorable things, John McCain is exactly quintessentially the opposite of that. Even though I don't agree necessarily with his political convictions, I can respect the class and decorum that he showed in a situation like that and refuse to let the woman besmirch his opponent or disrespect a fellow American. And thank you, John McCain.
Our friend Joe, who is in the military, basically, he said something like how people think he's a hero for being in the armed forces, and he says, no, John McCain's a hero. And I say, no, Joe, you protect your country. We salute you, and thank you for your service. I always have a very deep respect for anyone who serves Canadian Armed Forces, the U.S. military, what have you. If you're willing to put your life on the line for your country, you have my respect.
And he literally did. He was a prisoner of war. He very literally had his life on the line.
Yeah, and he had a lot of friends. I did read some reading. A couple of interesting news notes from a sports perspective. The famous Arizona Diamondback Luis Gonzalez is going to be one of the pallbearers for one of the services out in Arizona, and the service in Washington will have famous Arizona Coyote Canadian hockey player Shane Doan.
Right, and two former presidents are both going to give eulogies at his funeral: Barack Obama and George Bush.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be a week of honors, and I'm going to be watching those. I'm sure you will too. But thank you, John McCain, for all you did.
For being a class act and a patriot, an American hero, and a distinguished member of Congress. Thank you for all of those things and more.
Well, let's try to transition to other news notes here. So UFC Fox 31 in Milwaukee on December the 15th has added Dwight Grant against Eric Koch. There's only one other fight announced so far, and that's Jared Gordon against Joaquim Silva. And it's going to be at the home of the Milwaukee Bucks, the first time the UFC is going to that arena.
Well, that's not surprising. It's a long overdue thing, I think.
Caitlin Vieira is out of the UFC show Fight Night in Brazil. Her opponent, Tanya Evinger, they're looking for an opponent. It looks like they're looking for someone in Brazil. They haven't released what's going to who the opponent's going to be yet. It's one of those things where I think it'd be easier to find a local fighter than fly somebody in.
Yeah, especially if you're going to Brazil, you want to get somebody as local as possible because you're asking a big commitment for a fighter who works, trains, lives in the United States to take that fight. It's a big commitment.
We have some PFL news.
Piffle.
Oh, geez, here we go. So they're having their big playoffs coming up, and Brian Foster and Ramsey Nijem both had pull out.
Okay, you got to explain this one to me. Hold on. Back the truck up.
Okay.
How did Brian Foster not have a license?
The commission will not license him.
Is this the whole thing about his CRT scan? Because I interviewed him about that, and he said that had been blown out of proportion, and every other doctor he'd ever seen had all cleared him.
All I saw was that he's been pulled from the playoff. So has Ramsey Nijem for a medical suspension. So the final fight to play to get into the 8-man tournament or the 8-man playoff.
Jason High
and Johnny Case.
Yeah, Hollywood Johnny Case.
Not a bad fight. It's
No.
tempting. It's this Thursday if you have PFL. Piffle. Get me saying it now, damn it. Check out PFL this Thursday. Watch High and Case. See what happens there for that last spot. But
that
there's
just
some other
sucks
news.
Balls for Brian Foster because, in my opinion, he probably got disqualified for no good reason.
He got hosed.
Yeah, he got hosed, Davey. He got hosed.
Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't end the show this week with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather.
Ooh, yeah, we got to talk about it.
So, Floyd offered his gym to Conor to train for his fight against Khabib.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice thing to do. I was impressed, actually.
Nice, but also a bit of a publicity stunt, if we're being perfectly honest.
Maybe. But, hey, you make an offer, you can politely say thanks, but no thanks, I've got a good thing going. That's not Conor's style.
No, Conor doesn't do anything in a polite or tactful manner, shall we say.
What was the old joke? Conor doesn't do anything half-ass, he uses his whole ass.
This is the man who stitched the word fuck into the lining of his sport coat.
He said, fuck the Mayweathers except for Roger and Senior. I was like, okay.
You
could have just said thanks.
You knew that's how it was going to turn out.
Yeah, he said no peace, and I'm like, no peace? You're not fighting again. There's no way.
Yeah.
Wait, is there?
There is.
No.
Come on.
No.
You know there's hundreds of millions of dollars in it for both of them.
Would you watch it?
Would I watch it if you gave it to me for free?
Would you pay money for it?
Not $100.
Well, I'm sure you'd rather watch some Iowa State football, that's for sure.
I'd probably rather watch Logan Paul fight KSI.
Who? What?
You don't know what I'm talking about? Are you that tone deaf to pop culture?
KSI?
You don't know who Logan Paul and KSI are?
No.
Okay. First of all, you need to Google that shit, right now. Second of all, they're both huge, and I do mean multi-million subscriber huge YouTube celebrities. And they had a boxing match in England over the weekend that did 800,000 buys on YouTube pay-per-view and an estimated 1.2 million illegal streams. Yeah, 2 million combined streams.
That's almost as crazy as that deep-fried grilled cheese you talked about last week.
And it's estimated that they each made a $50 million payout for the fight.
Whoa. 50 million?
Yes. That's why I'm like, how are you shocked by this? How have you not heard about this?
I might have heard about it. I just didn't know it was that high of a demand for it.
Oh yeah, the Logan Paul fan base is something else. They are crazy hype for the Paul brothers. And in fact, there's a rivalry between Logan and Jake that's often the focus of their antics. But in this case, they were actually on the same side because they each had fights on this card. I believe it was Jake Paul that won his fight by knockout against KSI's younger brother.
So rematch and just flip the fights.
Well, actually, there is supposed to be a rematch between Logan Paul and KSI. They had already agreed to 2 fights before the first one even took place.
Of course they did. Oh boy. Well,
I'm just surprised that I am the purveyor of pop culture on this one. I really thought you were in tune.
No,
I'm not trying to
not.
mock you. I'm just saying, how did you not know about it?
Because I was doing my research for fantasy football this past weekend.
All I can say is it was big enough that it made the Figure 4 Daily Update as a headline. So.
Oh, Jesus, it did not.
Yes, it did. It was like the Saturday or Sunday headline, and they noted in the Daily Update that it was the top Google search for the day.
Wow. All right. Well, Stevie, what's on tap for Thursday night at AMP?
We're going to be talking about All In since that takes place this weekend.
Oh, right. That is going to be. I'm trying to think. The buys. I'm trying to think. Will it be a success on iPay-per-view or?
It probably won't do Logan Paul numbers, but I bet you it'll do like 100 or 150. I could see it doing a very respectable amount of internet pay-per-view buys because they sold out the tickets for that venue so damn fast that you know there are people who wanted to go who can't, who will buy the pay-per-view just to watch it.
I'm tempted to buy it. I'm just, there's a lot of, the price tag's a little steep, but I mean, I do know a lot of a lot of the wrestlers, from the local indie scene here, and, I'm glad to see them in certain matches. So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious to see if this is a success, what the next phase or the next step will be. So.
And remember, you can watch the pre-show on WGN America for free, including the over-budget Battle Royal. I love that name.
All right. Well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter H., the Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening. And as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.
See ya.